Well, that wasn't what I expected, and it is probably not what you expected. So, let's talk about it. Hey everyone, it's Charles. How are you today? Gosh golly. The official Masters 8 tournament bracket was just released, and what can I say? They fooled everyone. I ran through a variety of potential tournament brackets in a previous video and post my personal forecast on Twitter, and I'm sure many others have done the same, but the official bracket, it looks like this. Leon versus Elon, Lance versus Diantha, Cynthia versus Iris, and Ash versus Steven. I have not seen a single bracket forecast that was 100% on the mark, and a couple of these matchups are a real bolt from the Beldum, and there is a lot to unpack here, so today's plan is to 1. Break down the juicy nuggets that were just revealed about each of these matchups, and 2. Contrast each pairing against popular expectations and the Masters 8 matchups that could have been, because this tournament card isn't exactly what people were expecting, and that is not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but as always, this video is going to be a good time, so kindly subscribe to join the family, hit the like button because it will soothe your soul, and let's jump right in. In episode 115, we will see Ash's classic rival Elon take on the reigning monarch Leon. Firstly, it is a proper chef's kiss flourish to see Elon rocking a chestnut, as I would eat my own socks if it was not our dear old friend Chespy. Big bro Elon taking the fam all the way to the world stage is very wholesome, and since it has been revealed that Leon will G-max his Rillaboom, we also know that his Charizard will be taking on Elon's Mega Charizard X as Vanillazard. Badass alert. This was to be expected in order to illustrate the supremacy of Leon's Charizard, and my sympathy is with Elon for drawing into the two-man group of death. In episode 116, Dragon Master Lance will be pitted against that actress lady, Diantha. I'm happy that Lance's original BFF is back in action after getting sidelined for the Hawk Girl for years. And we see that he has also brought Hydreigon along for the ride. Backing up Diantha's ace, Mega Gardevoir, is a frosty cool Pokemon that Lance will not be happy to see, and it looks like he will be utilizing the Dynamax mechanic yet again. The recent trailer presents the battles as 2v2s, so I assume that Lance will be beefing up his Hydreigon, unless the show surprises us with 3v3s. Fingers crossed. In episode, we don't know which episode yet, the Underdragon Iris will challenge archaeologist and professional internet waifu Cynthia, and probably get dragged through the coals by the number 2 hero. I feel about as bad for Iris as I do for the other sacrificial lamb, and yet the matchup does serve as a nice continuation of Cynthia's mentorship from the Black and White series. We also see Cynthia's 6th Pokemon at long last, none other than Milotic. I love that pretty fish, and I must say that the writers have done well, drawing from the variants of Cynthia's team in the main series games and Masters X, while twisting a little anime ice cream into the mix. In the trailer, Cynthia's Garchomp is seen going in for a big Dragon Claw on Iris's Haxorus, but Iris's other Pokemon has been kept under wraps, which makes me wonder if Excadrill will be filling in for Championite this time around. Lastly, Champion of Hoenn and elusive Bachelor Steven Stone will put Alola Champion Ash to the test. This matchup was hinted at in the special preview trailer released at the end of May, but the latest trailer reveals that Ash's Gengar will square off against Steven's Cradily, which makes me hope that it didn't pawn off Ice Punch when it learned Will-O-Wisp, and Pikachu will move in on Steven's Mega Metagross. Pikachu dropped a lesser Metagross back in the Kalos League finals, so we shall see if our boy can go 2 for 2. Ideally, Ash's Gengar will survive its prehistoric Noodle Flower encounter so that it can soften up Mega Metagross with Will-O-Wisp for Pikachu before getting swept by, I'll call it right here, a big blaster of a Psychic to the face. Good luck, Gengar. So, about these matchups, I made my bracket forecast based on what I thought the writers would do, rather than how I would write the bracket myself, but even so, I was close but not quite on the honey. Leon versus Elon and Cynthia versus Iris makes sense even if the other pairings for these trainers are arguably more desirable, but the other two matchups, they threw me off. And the unpredictability keeps things exciting, but these matchups do fly in the face of the thinking of many longtime fans who are probably more familiar with the ins and outs of the series than many of the writers themselves. So I think it's worth framing each of these matchups against popular expectations to tease out some interesting insights. Leon vs. Elon works because Elon functions as the martyr to set up the tournament power scale and in order to intimidate Ash when Elon, his unbeatable rival, sucks down a fat L. That said, Iris, Steven, or Diantha could have been used to the same effect. Not to mention that hot anticipation was boiling over around a potential Ash vs. Elon opener. And while that rivalry didn't necessarily need to be revisited, it would have come loaded with meaning relative to the Ashy boy matchup that we will be getting, as cool as that matchup may be. Lance vs. Diantha smacks of what happens when writers close their eyes and throw darts. And the result may be a lot of fun since I had never envisioned these two squaring off, but it does leave me thinking that Lance vs. the aspiring Dragon Master Iris would have been golden, as a victory over or narrow loss to the OG Dragon Master would have been a banger of a chapter in her journey. Lance vs. Cynthia or Lance vs. Ash would also have made for a dandy, as Lance vs. Cynthia would establish that Big C is capable of stamping out last year's runner-up with confidence in advance of her matchup with Ash, taking out the 4th seed as opposed to merely the 7th. And Lance versus Ashy Boy himself would also work fairly well, since Ash encountered Lance multiple times in the early era of the anime, back when the G-Man was portrayed as a power player far, far beyond our young hero in terms of power and cape swag. And on that note, some things never change. As for Diantha, I would have paired her with Steven, Cynthia, Elon, or even thrown her to the Purple Panther. It could have been particularly fun to stage an upset wherein Elon beats his Kalos superior to meet Leon in the semi-finals. As mentioned, Cynthia vs. Iris makes a lot of sense as a continuation of Cynthia's mentorship of Iris in the Black and White series, and although I would like to see Cynthia take down a top 4 or traditional champion on screen to make plain her position on the pecking order, and Lance vs. Iris seems like a no-brainer, I do like the big sister little sister vibes that are dripping out of this matchup. But how about you? Ash vs. Steven is interesting in that Steven has never been positioned as either a mentor or a rival to Ash, making the pairing a curious choice from a narrative perspective. Clearly they have set Ash on a trajectory to defeat the 3rd strongest, 2nd strongest, and strongest trainers in the world, but if we are connecting the dots, then I can't help but think that it would have been more fitting to see Elon and Steven continue their unfinished battle from the XY series, or for Steven to take on his old acquaintance Diantha. Either way, I'm sure that the fandom will forever look at this matchup as the "that should have been Elon" matchup, but so it is. And let us not forget, Ash Ketchum is about to take on Steven Stone, the reigning champion of Hoenn, a sentence I can hardly believe is coming out of my mouth, and that is something special by its own merit. Well, the writers pulled the wool over our eyes with this tournament bracket, but the unexpected matchups could very well turn out to be fantastic, and I am excited for every one of these battles. Moreover, I think Ash's path to the finals is as clear as ever, and I suspect that we may see Leon versus Diantha on the other side of the bracket, unless the writers are more savage than I had ever imagined. With that said, here is my updated tournament bracket. What do you think about it?